Alright, we're about to get into part 3. If you'd like to help support myself or Mr. Jake Ayers, you can go to our Teespring store and purchase one of our shirts. His, which will be up on screen now, is teespring.com/stores/TheJakeAyers. And mine is teespring.com/stores/Christopher-Pack. So, you'd like to support either one of us, it would be greatly appreciated. Now let's get in to part 3, which is it's got a little bit of dark stuff into it, but yeah. All right, catch you on the flip side.
So, Chris, you come in every year for the Autumn Leaves Festival back to Mount Airy, North Carolina, our hometown of, it's also known as Mayberry from the Andy Griffith Show. So, has anything changed since you've left, or are you homesick to move back?
Because of family and friends, I would move back, but I'd have to. Well, like the whole reason I left. Well, do we have to backtrack all the way to NAFTA? Is it because NAFTA happened and Renfro was a huge factory in Mount Airy? Then all that moved down to Mexico, so basically the town itself became devastated. Then when we're in high school, I mean all that was left was some restaurants, fast food, Walmart, and a few banks. And then I remember thinking there's nothing here for me to stick around for, so I went in the military to get out. So I can get a college degree and all that shit too. But it seems like in the last couple of years they've been trying to turn it around as a tourist spot, even though I guess it was built on a lie. Because even Andy, I've heard that Andy Griffith's it may have been inspired by Mount Airy, but it definitely isn't.
It was partially. He's from Mount Airy, and the concept of Mount Airy is the Andy Griffith Show, but it's not exclusively the basis for Mayberry. It's just kind of your generic southern small town. You can find the Mayberry about anywhere in North Carolina, but he's from Mount Airy, so it's the definitive actual Mayberry, but I think they've blown it out of proportion essentially. And there's no way he was going to move back here when he retired. He went to Manio, by God. But I know what you're saying. NAFTA cost, that was Bill Clinton's fault. He cost 10,000 jobs in 10 years in Mount Airy alone. Just in our small town, 10,000 jobs gone.
Because I remember my cousin's grandmother was, I think she was she put so many years in, and she was close to retiring and pension and all that shit. And all that went away.
Oh, Bigfoot was out there.
So, but
really?
I mean, yeah. But I mean, especially if you look on Facebook, it's oh, this is warm, inviting town. Yeah, there's some drugs and heroin and murder. Let's just get that out of the way.
That's the real Mayberry.
Do we want to get into that too?
Yeah, we should. We should. On the surface, and I understand the attraction to Mount Airy. If you live in a bigger city, weekend getaway. You get a smile from every stranger. Some awesome little places to go visit. And all that's on the surface, though. To get into what's actually up there, it's very depressing for the average young person, because it's essentially now, not only is it throttling on being a ghost town, it's a retirement community. So I think it was May of 2013. I could be off on that date. The city spent $10,000 to make it a retirement community, which definitely tells any businesses, especially any industry coming in there, that we don't want you. We just want old people and their millions of dollars to come up here, spend their money on restaurants and banks, and then die. And essentially, there's nothing for young people to do. So it's definitely, in my opinion, the main cause of a rise in drug culture.
Oh, I remember seeing a thing on Facebook too when I was looking at it. They were "Oh yeah, we just got to approve this $500,000 thing to bury the power lines on Main Street so it looks more aesthetic for businesses." I'm are you fucking serious? There's I don't know how much middle class there is, but I know there's definitely a lot of poverty in Mount Airy, and there's also a lot of wealth in Mount Airy.
There's no middle class in Mount Airy. There's rich people, and there's the retirement community that's old, that's moved up there, and then there's everybody else. So it's they're lacking a middle class big time. I mean, essentially, there's the poor, there's the upper lower class, and then there's the wealthy. And a lot of them have retired up there. It's old money. Any money up there, other than the Mexicans from the carport business, because they're hustling and working and creating new money. They're essentially the largest group up there that's created new money. Everybody else is old money, whether they have always been there or whether they have just retired there. But essentially anybody, a young entrepreneur or somebody wanting to do something with their life, even as something as simple as finding something to do or dating someone that hasn't fucked the whole county, it's quite the challenge. Because if any girl between 18 and 29 is riding the cotton carousel pretty hard up there in Surrey County.
Because it seems like I've thought about moving back, but maybe like Winston-Salem or Greensboro or Charlotte or something like that. But maybe Mount Airy is a last resort if it's like super cheap. But I heard even like the rent's starting to go back up in Mount Airy too.
It will, probably because of it being a retirement community and the tourism thing. And there's also a tourism tax that if you buy something up there, say McDonald's, you're going to pay more for it in Mount Airy than you are in Winston-Salem. They've slipped in a tourism tax up there that most people don't know about, which is crazy.
Is that why they don't know what almond milk is?
They probably don't know what almond milk is. That's too far. That's too consciousness expanding for them. They think the almonds actually got nipples you have to milk, and nobody got time for that.
It's funny because I grew up here, so I spent 18 years here. Then I went away for a little bit, then I came back. And like in the military, you can't really have an accent. You gotta kind of get rid of it, especially if it's Southern. So I kind of like inadvertently get rid of it. And I come back, it's like, "How you doing, darling?" I'm like, Jesus Christ, I forgot about this.
Yeah, it's
very Southern Belle-esque.
I've stayed in the area, so I've kept mine. Yours has turned into kind of an Ohio. Not quite. It's.
What is Ohio?
It's instead of saying y'all.
No, I still say y'all.
You don't do this, but like in Ohio, instead of saying y'all, it's you guys.
Yeah, I don't do that.
You guys are turning me on. Shut up, bitch! Get back to Myrtle Beach.
Well, it seems like Ohio's like it's like a northern state, but they claim to be a southern.
Yeah,
state.
they are the rednecks of the north, essentially.
Yeah,
essentially. So you didn't go so far up, You're not a.
I'm talking about while still in like North Carolina, like in Jacksonville.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, that was probably breaking down your something to do in the military, break down your personality a little bit, or
something
kind of conform you to the unit versus being an individual.
Oh, it wasn't that. It's just I got tired of fucking people. Well, if I drink or whatever, like my southern drawl.
Oh, it's gonna come out.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's crazy as hell up there, man. I know people living up there. It's
But I mean, they're like building bars and shit now, right?
It's microbreweries, and it's pretty cool, but it's not like a legit bar. I mean, they close at 11 o'clock, and down here we might not get out till 11 o'clock. So after it shuts down at 11, and I completely understand why they do it. It's a regulation of the city limits. But even if it wasn't, you have to keep out a certain crowd up there. People can't hold their alcohol up there. They go crazy. They lose their shit.
Oh, speaking about that, I remember we were 7th or 8th grade, and the city was voting whether they should we have alcohol served in restaurants?
I don't remember then, but I remember it was not ninth grade. It was 2005 or right before that. They passed liquor by the drink, and it passed. And after that, we got a Ruby Tuesdays and a Chili's.
Was it that late? I thought it was.
I was 19.
Okay, I might have been working at the middle school while I still.
Yeah, you were working down there.
So I was going to high school, but I was going to the middle school to work to do office shit.
But going back to the drug culture thing, it's people. I believe in overcoming negativity, negative thoughts. You definitely got to change your thoughts, your perspective on things, and
you definitely shouldn't murder people in their house.
You shouldn't murder people in their house. But we'll get to that. What I'm leading into is I think there's a great deal of depression and anxiety in that area because there's just nothing for people to do, and it's a lot of wasted energy. So it becomes negative. Instead of people just moving from the area, they turn to meth and heroin and different stuff to numb the pain. So it's a massive rise in drug culture.
I mean, it's kind of an income, too, when you don't have anything else to...
It is, but you have to just better yourself in some way to get out of there. In some way, applying for jobs that barely pay outside of the city limits to get you out of there, maybe to Winston or Greensboro, is better than turning to drugs.
Should they give them $15 an hour for flipping burgers?
No, they should not. Because that's more than EMTs make. And if you can't get somebody's Happy Meal right, you don't deserve $15 an hour. Now, if McDonald's, as a private company, decided to do that, that's fine. But I don't think the government should come in and force a private company to do it. But that's a whole other conversation.
What do you think pizza places are paying up there now?
Pizza places, I don't know, man. I think that's a rising empire. It's, if I could buy stock in a pizza place, maybe like a local privately owned business place, if I could ever get the opportunity to purchase stock in it, like if I knew someone that owned a pizzeria or possibly like a pizza pie factory or something, I would probably buy some stock in it. But
I wonder where this is going.
We'll have to we'll have to have Grant Cardone on or somebody to kind of guide us in our investing our money. A money to money deal. Is the fastest way to make money.
Maybe they need somebody for some good video marketing too.
Yeah. Well, they've already done one video up there, but it was like 6 or 8 killed during the production of it. So.
Yeah, I was one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, here I sit.
But would you like to just take this over, Chris? You have a personal, like powerful statement on the whole drug culture up there. It's not that people cannot discount your experience with how bad it is.
Okay. I guess we can get into it. I made a video about it anyway. So I made a previous video about it, put it up on YouTube. So essentially what happened was, I found out, it was like St. Patrick's Day weekend, I remember. Like in, this was last year, it's 2017. And I'm assuming it happened on that Friday, but I didn't hear about it until like the next day or the day after. And essentially, after everything had cleared, what I found out is essentially somebody. My dad was helping. They've been split for forever since I was a kid. My dad was helping my mom take her to get her like medication. She just got her medication from the doctor, so they're thinking it's somebody that knows her or her schedule, something like that. But she was like at the house, and I guess my sister is the one that found her. Like she had like bled out on the floor, and what they're thinking was that somebody came. It was like trying to steal her pills or medication, so I'm assuming so they can like sell them as like drugs on the street or whatever. And they were like, I guess there's like a glass checkerboard like chest thing. They like hit her on the back of the head, trying to like at least knock her out. And it shattered, and I guess it like nicked her neck or whatever, and where she has like high blood pressure, she ended up like bleeding out. So,
did they ever arrest anyone over that?
No. From what I've heard from my cousin is. They have somebody they have as a, what do you call it, like a...
person of interest or suspect.
Yeah, but I guess like a lot of evidence got kind of messed up in the Raleigh office, so they can't really do anything, at least yet.
Imagine that.
Because it's been like a year and a half.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not surprised that they botched it up. There's been so many overdoses in that county. It's like, it's not as bad as High Point, but it's about to eclipse the numbers. I mean, it'd be like 6 or 8 overdoses in a 24-hour period, which is insane. This is not something I ever really heard about growing up. It was crimes, it was drugs, and maybe I heard heroin mentioned a couple of times, but up to a couple of years ago, I just thought it was just primarily something that mostly phased out in the 60s. I didn't think about people.
I mean, there was a lot of weed, but not.
Yeah, but
heroin.
Exactly. That's completely different.
To give you an idea, about a week and a half ago, I had caught wind when I got to work that they had 7 in one night. That they had to
Narcan,
in the ED.
It's insane. I had a friend that I worked security with, and he lived for a short while up in Massachusetts. But he said that it was so bad up there that the security officers at the hospital was carrying around Narcan. It was inducing it on people that they would just throw out.
They do it ours.
Yeah, they just throw them out on the sidewalk, man, because they don't want to go in. They don't want to go in and get in trouble. Mm-hmm. And I know a girl who died up there over the summer that was thrown out on the side of the road and basically was in a coma for 2 weeks because she OD'd in the car and people left her out. So it's bad. I mean, the dark side of Mount Airy, Mayberry, the real Mayberry, it's pretty dark, man. It's not pretty. I understand the tourism. And I understand that that's a cool thing, and you can preserve the the historical Mount Airy area and the whole Mayberry scene, you can preserve that. There's a place for it always. But if you don't build up an economy for the actual people living there and give young people something to do and some place to work, it's going to continue increasing the drug usage and the crime rate. It's going to finally eclipse tourism.
Yeah.
It's just something bad's going to happen up there to where it's national news. And it's going to damage the city's image. Instead of trying to keep it under wraps, it's eventually going to get out.
Well, you can't build a life or a family on fast food and Andy Griffith tourism.
You can't.
You can't.
There's only a select people up there, and this usually don't last, that are paying their bills on some of them shops on Main Street, and it don't take 5 minutes to go through any of them. And, I'm not against that. I'm all for it. If you can make a living on that, please do. But you cannot employ the local economy or the local population on those, novelty shops. It just can't be done. So everybody else is left to steal copper wiring and, whatever else they can do. I mean, Pike Electric all the time goes up them damn utility boxes on the side of the road and somebody's laying out there unconscious where they've tried to steal the copper out of it and go sell it. They're either knocked out or they're dead.
Jeez.
It's insane. There was one night several years ago that somebody took a bunch of galvanized rods and sit back and threw them into one of those fenced-in, utility stations with all like the electric grid type thing that Duke Energy has set up, and shorted out a bunch of it so they could get in there and get the copper, and it knocked out the power in like 1,400 homes in Mount Airy city limits, just because they wanted to go in there. They hustling, man. They hustling. I understand though, trying to make that money. So if you do move back to North Carolina, Chris, unless you had to, I wouldn't move to Mount Airy unless it was just temporary. If it's temporary, I can understand it. Yeah. But I would aim for Winston or Greensboro or even Charlotte, Raleigh maybe. Michael Peterson might need a roommate.
I don't know who that is.
You will.
I will.
You will. Only advice me and Zane have for you is if he's near a staircase and you're near a staircase, you're in danger. Don't go near a staircase with him. You're liable to wind up at the bottom of it.
You're right.
With an owl in your hair. Or maybe a blowpoke beating you in the fucking skull.
How about beating somebody with a torque bar like Twain?
Who is Twain?
Twain's my brother.
I know who Twain is, but they don't.
Technically, yeah, I know. Technically my half-brother.
Yeah, he's your half-brother. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Does he look like the male singer from Die Antwoord?
Kinda, yes.
Yeah, he does look like that guy.
Maybe on the, how do I put this? Yes, but not as... The lead singer of Die Antwoord isn't the best looking guy, and Twain's not as good looking as he is, if that clears up. I don't know, but he seems to be getting a lot of...
Well, there's nothing wrong with
He has a bunch of kids.
There's nothing wrong with a big girl, especially if she's your cousin.
How about an underage girl?
Well, there's something wrong with that.
Yeah. But I don't know, he's doing random... I don't know what the hell he's doing, actually. He's like random shit.
He said, we keep that in the family. You said, we keep it in the family, all right. What is he doing? Like, he's going to fix up the homestead, though, right?
That home?
Yeah. Didn't he want to fix that up?
Yeah, he was wanting to, because when all that happened, I guess there wasn't like an official like will or whatever, so like it was going to the kids. I told him I didn't want anything to do with it, so it was between him and Phoenix, and they're doing whatever. I think he wants to I think he's like moved in to the house. And he's like trying to like fix it up because it's kind of run down as it is. I mean, like, because there was like a bunch of family and cousins and all that stuff that like grew up on that hill, and there was like 4 or 5 like different houses up there with a bunch of like cousins and everything. But like a lot of them are like older, so a lot of them like have passed away now. Then a lot of people like moved out and stuff. So I think 1, maybe 2 of the houses were occupied at the time, not including hers. And he moved in. He's trying to fix it up, I guess.
And this is odd, but where that house sits today, my grandpa always told me that when he was a kid, at one point, he moved around several places in Mount Airy, but they lived on that hill over there. He told me, it was up on that hill. It was across from the Hillside Racetrack up there across from Skyline on 52.
Yeah.
And he said when he was a kid that there was a spring, like a natural spring that ran through there, and he was able to get water out of it and stuff. But he told me, this ties into some of our paranormal stuff, Zane, that when they moved into this house, it's probably long gone before y'all ever, maybe before you ever was born. I don't know.
Just some old houses up there,
Yeah.
like log cabin houses.
Yeah, he said he swears them down. I mean, he's passed on now, but at the time, he told me that when they moved into that house, there was a door. One of the doors to the bedroom had multiple gunshots through the door, where a guy apparently thought he was seeing a ghost, and he would lock himself in a room and shoot through a door. And he told me one night when he was a kid that he woke up and there was 2 or 3 or more little children on his bed. He said they looked like little girls, and he said they would just take turns jumping off the end of the bed. He said he could see children jumping off the end of his bed, and he said when one would jump off, there'd be another one right there ready to jump off. And it's just the way he would tell me. He said it was like they were playing some kind of game, and he said he was absolutely terrified, and he couldn't get his sisters to wake up. He was the only boy there was like 4 or 5 sisters. But he said after that, he became deathly ill for like a year. I don't know if he got rheumatic fever or if he got fallen arch or whatever he had. But he was like sick terminally. He could have died. I think that was, he got rheumatic fever, but I could be mixing it up. But he said basically he didn't walk for like a year after that. He was bedridden for like a year. And he said he finally got to where one day in the bed he could do a sit-up. He said I could sit up finally after about a year. And he said I didn't tell anybody. I didn't say nothing. And he said, I finally got to where I could sit completely up. And then I finally got to where I could sit on the edge of the bed and put my feet on the floor for the first time. And he said it felt like knives stabbing his feet when the first time he stood up. I'm sure it did.
Yeah.
He walked for a year. But he said it was some kind of a warning or some kind of premonition that he was going to be sick. I don't know. There's no telling what's on that hill, Chris.
I mean, there's...
I don't know if you've ever seen anything like that. And they're buried, ironically, they're buried across from it. He
Are
and
they?
my grandma, yeah.
Skyline?
She's buried and he was cremated, but she's holding the urn. She was buried with the urn. His ashes are in Skyline over there. Yeah. I've never been up to the grave. I'm not big on visiting cemeteries because I believe the soul has passed on. If you want to go pay respects, I'm completely fine with that, but I know they're not there.
I mean,
they're gone.
Yeah.
I mean, there's that house there with the well that's built into the front porch pretty much because I've gone to it and it was like an old-timey well with the bucket and the rope. You let it down, get water, and then wind it back up.
I wouldn't doubt that's the same place, man. They probably never tore it down. We should go in there and see if there's bullet holes in the door. Dude, that'd be crazy. He told me, too, when he first married my grandma, that they lived in his house. I think it was on Pittman Street in Bannertown. I believe that's where it was. He said when they moved in, part of the Celotex or whatever was cut out, or a man hung himself on a rafter in there. And he said at night you could hear somebody walking the floor, constantly walking around in there. And he said he grabbed a pistol and followed the sound out the back door. He said he heard the back door open and slam and everything, and somebody go out. And he said he grabbed the back door and it was locked. He said it was never opened. But he said you could hear whoever it was that killed himself, and they're still walking around, still rummaging through the house. It's crazy.
Shit.
He's had a lot of ghost experiences.
Who is this?
My grandpa, Ulysses. Okay. His name was Ulysses. A lot of them called him Useless. My grandma called him Euless, but a lot of them called him Useless.
He's buried in Skyline?
He's buried at Skyline.
Okay.
He's buried over there. We'll have to go over there sometime.
I've heard Skyline's haunted.
I have heard, according to Stephen Metter, that he was hanging out there one night with a group of people, and they could see, he swears up down, you could see a little girl playing peekaboo and hide and seek out behind a damn tombstone with him. But that's his story. I'll have to have him on for that. When he's not so drunk, he don't slur his speech.
I'm not shocked that he was hanging out in the cemetery.
Oh, God.